I'm Councilmember Kym Pine, and this is Hope and Healing during the COVID crisis. Today, our discussion is about creating a new economy that will feed our people and save the planet. As Hawaii begins the process of opening the economy, our dependence on a single industry, tourism, has been catastrophic to our residents. Many of us are out of work and uncertain if the jobs will be there when the crisis abates. People are asking, how are they going to feed their families if they will have to move, or if their children will have to move to financial stability? It is once again abundantly clear that to become sustainable, Hawaii must diversify the economy. Some of our most promising sectors include agriculture, alternative energy, and technology. Joining us by popular demand is Dr. Tusi Avegalio, the director of the Pacific Business Center program at the University of Hawai'i Manoa, and Reverend Kalani Souza, who is the founding director of Olohana Foundation and a native Hawaiian cultural practitioner. His work is at the forefront of outreach and preparedness in the event of a disaster of the Pacific region. We also welcome Michael Lurvey, the developer of the award-winning, sorry everybody, I just lost my script. Sorry about that, everybody. I just lost my script. Well, welcome, Michael. I want to thank all of you folks for coming here today. I want to thank everyone for being here today. We have gone through quite an emotional roller coaster. And one thing is clear is that we have put ourselves at risk for the future. And I want to thank Tusi, Kalani, and Michael for being here. And Michael, of course, TCOM technology is a simple portable solution to waste management and energy production that can convert waste into commercially viable products. And if you've just joined us, we are speaking with Dr. Tusi Avegalio, Reverend Kalani Souza, and Michael Lurvey about how to create a new economy for Hawaii that will feed our people and save our planet. So my first question to you, Kalani, you're a Hawaiian Kapuna, National Coordinator for Disaster Preparedness and Training. Hawaii's severe vulnerabilities of 90% dependence on imported food have been amplified by the corona pandemic. With the current economic development model and planning that lacks diversification, with a focus on imports linked to globalization, are there local solutions to this problem?
Wow, great question, and thank you. I also want to note that I'm joined by my really good friend, Hank Fergerstrom, who is also from Mokuoke'awe and a spokesperson for community. Stark focus on our inability to provide for ourselves because of the model of the last 150 years. You know, interestingly, in 1847, we're supplying all the food to the West Coast by treaty. So Hawaii's exporting some of the largest per capita goods to the West Coast United States for the US consumption. And now, you know, if you include fertilizers, the equipment, the capacity to take care of ourselves at a local agricultural level, we're importing maybe 93 to 94% of everything we need. So yes, occupationally, as somebody who's worked as a musician, gig part-time, I understand how that industry is impacted. I got friends with family members that have no work, right? And I have no prospects for work in the immediate future. So how we rebuild is important. Solutions like the TCOM, which we'll get into it, Mike, later, the ability to take our waste and turn it into resources that we can use on the islands, critical for anybody that's working in a closed loop system. And I would suggest that's the entire planet. But solid waste management to our recycling has always been a concern. My grandfather would say, you take the universe external to you, you masticate, take that universe into you, decide what's going to become you, and then you compost the rest. So composting and waste, how things end, are wholly dependent on how they begin, right? So we should understand the chain from the beginning to the end. That being said, my grandfather used to say, if it don't begin right, it ain't going to end right. And we really should start with a pule, don't you think?
Sure.
Something to bring us all into the room. Hey, if you'd be so kind, maybe a ho'imai.
E hoi mai kai ki mai luna mai. O nā mea una noi au. E ia o e. E hoi mai. E hoi mai. E hoi mai. E hoi mai kai ki mai luna mai e. O nā mea huna no iau, o lau e. E hoi mai, e hoi mai, e hoi mai, hoi mai.
Come into
kai ki
us.
mai luna mai.
Come and be with us from
O
above.
nā mea
Bring the
huna
wisdom
no
of
iau,
our ancestors.
o nā poe.
Bring it present to be with us.
E hoi mai.
Please be with us. Come be with us. Always with us. Mahalo. In Malaysia,
Mahalo.
we can move through this thing. This is part of what makes the island culture and island living whole and well and substantial. I can see in short language that the millionaire and billionaire investors who have been giving to offshore multinational corporations their investment dollars that create the tourist industry that offshore most of the profits and leave us all victimized to a servant labor ship should in fact be investing in industry, in farming, in manufacturing. Maui County, Hawaii County, even Kauai County, these rural communities feed the metropolitan areas. This is part of a federal study done from the 2000s, early 2000s. Nate Wood out of Oregon with the National Guard Service, working with the emergency management community. The rural outlying counties and communities do not have the political stance, but they do have the capacity to help reinvigorate the economy of our metropolitan areas. What we need to do is make sure that our rural agricultural communities have the capacity to be there when we need them. We need to stop undermining our local farmers, and we need to begin supporting local products, local enterprise, local business. This is what happens when you put all your eggs in one basket. Omelet.
Thank you so much, Kalani, for helping to understand the seriousness of the situation that we are in. And so I think that leads off to Tusi. Dr. Tusi, a question for you. In 2010, the Pacific Business Center program launched the Pacific Regional Breadfruit Initiative to explore localized opportunities for new industries, manufacturing and export potential for meaningful economic development and greater self-reliance. Could you share the 2020 updates regarding the Breadfruit Initiative?
Yes. First of all, thank you for inviting me on your panel. And it was great to be here with Brother Kalani and Hank and Mike. Yes, the Pacific Business Center, we're a program at the College of Business. And we work with entrepreneurs, business development, doing research primarily in market studies, product analysis, and things associated with business development. And then we provide feasibility assessments on potential products. We found that most of the problems we had is that many of the economic development ideas are basically stateside bound. They take very little consideration of how to build what's here locally. So with our work throughout the region, we realized that we've got an amazing gift that's always been available. It's called breadfruit. And the breadfruit is the most resilient and most prolific fruit-bearing tree in the world. One tree can produce between 750 and 950 pounds of raw fruit per tree per year. Now, if you figure out 750, 950 pounds of grain, rice or corn, that would require acreage, personnel, and technology here. You're just looking at one tree. Now you multiply the trees per acre and you get an amazing, amazing yield. And what can you do with the yield? Well, right now, most of the emphasis is on making it into food, which is very important. But what we have been really focusing on, because the food side has been really not only tasty, but very healthy, is the byproduct side. Right now, when the research showed breadfruit is gluten-free and low glycemic index, I think that launched great interest in the fruit. And it's even more so because our marketing people project by 2025, the gluten-free, low glycemic index food market will be $32.39 billion. That's only 5 years from now. The other area in breadfruit of the byproduct is that we're seeing projections that plant protein will overtake meat protein within the foreseeable future for many different reasons that I don't want to go into now. But the primary source of plant protein are chickpeas, oat, maize, brown white sugar, wheat, potatoes, banana, cassava, yams, etc. But what people don't know, because our research nutritionist people have reported, breadfruit has more plant protein than all of them, head and shoulders. So the opportunity, and then we're working with Professor Susan Murch, and they've been able to successfully extract the protein from the flesh itself. So that's a whole view, and the market for that is even greater. It's $40.6 billion projected for 2025. And that's just the fruit. What we don't realize until fairly recently is the leaves and the male flower that drop and we usually throw away, burn, or bury. Well, we find out that with the US Department of Agriculture and US Department of Defense research, they tested in a traditional method of burning the dried fluorescence by many of our ancestors to ward off insect-bearing diseases in insects, basically as a pesticide. What they discovered is that the smoke contained 4 compounds greater than what is in DEET. That's huge. That means now we got an organic pesticide from leaves and the fluorescence, which we normally throw away, in addition to the fruit. And the pest control market is $17.60 billion. And that's projection just 2 years from for 2023. And the one that touches my heart the most is squalene. Squalene is a high demand cosmetic, and its primary source is from the liver of sharks. The squalene is used as a high-end moisturizer. Well, they extract it from sharks' livers because 40% of shark livers is squalene. The problem is 1 ton of squalene will require the death of 1.3 million sharks. Those are our relatives. So 2 tons per year, you're going to get over 2 million sharks slaughtered. And the projection for 2022 is 5,000 tons. I mean, this is heartbreaking. However, again, our research people have come up with an astonishing discovery, is that squalene can be extracted from breadfruit leaves and also from the fluorescent. So we can not only save the lives of so many of our ocean relatives, but we can come up with an alternative source. That's a whole nother market. And the one that's, to me, the greatest interest is just last year, I saw the research report. Squalene research has discovered that it also has anti-cancer effects on ovarian, breast, lung, and colon cancer. So the marketing on the processing of developing of squalene from breadfruit leaves is compelling. Now, I don't know who is doing what, but it would seem to me that we have here, right on our islands, wonderful solutions to not only diversification, but we can look at manufacturing, we can look at exports, we can look at production, we can look at milling and drying, and many of these jobs can be set up and organize and engage our local population, especially in the rural and coastal areas. So anyway, that's just some of the exciting stuff, because there's also the latex, which is permeable, which means the rubber that you get from it actually breathes. So when you go to medical areas, you know, they can use that. It's an amazing, the wood is termite free and the marine worm resistant. That's a whole nother, but anyway, these are the many gifts of Mother Earth. And
you know, it's gasoline at $5 a gallon or organic latex at $120 a gallon. What kind of product do we want to refine here in Hawaii?
And then working with Mike and his technology, he produces a carbon that can enhance the soil between 20 and 200%. So what that does is it really charges the soil and the agricultural lands where we can develop, and basically we can move on this within 6 months.
Right.
The groundwork's done, the research is done. If we get the support needed, we can make it work.
We need to be cautioned again, rushing back into real estate market, rushing back into tourism and group things, rent-a-cars. And, you know, I'm sorry, these are not actually supportable industries. And I can tell you from personal experience, during a natural disaster, we need real resources on the ground. We need to shift focus. We can thank Akua that we have the opportunity to take a pause, take a breath, and refocus on what is important to our families and our communities, what matters here on the ground on the Pai'aina.
Thank you so much. I do want to bring Michael in, but there is a question from Stuart Yurton, the senior business reporter, I believe from Civil Beat. Can you please discuss the importance of having long-term government institutional contractors with producers? We hear this as a way to provide a baseline of support, and farmers can borrow money against these contracts. What is being done and what more can we do? We're getting $1 billion from the federal government. What are we spending that money on? Can it be spent on helping you folks?
Wow, what a question, right? What a question. I know Hank's dying to say something. The fact is, we're about to expose the ugly underbelly of our research and of our academic institutions, right? That serve large pharma and large governmental agronomic institutions that make huge money globally and have been, in fact, targeted in India for bad behavior, targeted all over the world, banned from certain countries in Europe, and their home since 1957 has been here. But we don't talk about that. We just get sprayed down in the morning and go out and work in the pineapple fields and work in the cane fields. Our grandparents, our parents, our family members dying with high cancer rates. We need to get real about this, everybody. This is a chance from Akua. This is an intervention, an opportunity for us to do this right for the people we love, for our children, our grandchildren, for Hawaii. And I'm sorry, I'm hogging all Hank's time because we're excited. I didn't think in my lifetime we'd have this chance to reset it, right? I thought we were gonna have to leave this, but we have a chance. We should take it.
Well, before you explode over there in excitement, I do want to go back to the question. So the question is about a government partnership. And I've heard all the stories where the farmers, they just can't make a living.
Yes.
And we have to buy this type of fertilizer that's very poisonous, that's approved by the FDA or our federal government. And we have to be forced to farm a certain way, even though farmers in Hawaii know how to till the land better than anybody else. So do you believe that is our weakness, is that we don't have the government funded partnerships? We fund
a strong intervention.
We have not forced our government.
Why don't we fund farming?
Yes, we should have
forced our government to fund what is necessary.
I can say
flash freezing plants.
Yes.
For one.
Freezing plants?
We've eliminated our capacity. We get rid of our dairies. We invite mainlanders in. We would rather import. You know, I mean, that's what I'm talking about. We need to start looking institutionally at what is the Jones Act? How do you get a legal monopoly? Right, when there's a Taft-Harding federal act that says no monopolies allowed. I mean, this is all extremely interesting, these partnerships that happen because of legal ramifications of land ownership, of policy making. We need to get serious about how it is we intend to support Pax Americana in the Pacific. We are coming upon a tenuous moment when we have to engage with our indigenous and native populations in a real way to have livable capacity for all of our people here in the Pacific in order to maintain some semblance of, I would say, continuity, of civil continuity, you know what I mean, of society able to bridge. We all know from 1940 to 1945 what can happen when a situation in the Pacific degenerates into one where we don't have resources and we don't communicate well with each other. Let's not replicate that, right? It's like this is a moment for us to use our smarts, our ability to bring our economy in the entire region back in a real way. But it means we got to ask some tough questions.
You know, there's a lot of off production stuff that was very important that came out of the natural energy labs. Some of the, you know, while we were talking about the energy, the part that we were not collecting on is some of the benefits of the water air conversion. Just because you're bringing it up at 40 degrees, when it reaches the ambient temperature of the air, it causes precipitation. That's creating fresh water. Now, if you can do that and you can transport it up into those lava fields, you can have them all productive.
I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen agriculturally, industrial. Polly can speak to it more. And I don't want to waste the moment to get to Michael Lurvey. I'm telling you, this technology of solid waste management, we're moments away. You know what I mean? If you look at the 40 years of trying to get solid waste under control, we are simply moments away from having the last investments and pulling this miracle off where we don't worry about recycling or landfills, or where we utilize our own waste to make a better future. This is not a pipe dream. It's possible if we focus.
If we invest.
We'll head over to Michael in a second. I just to answer the question from the reporter, I do believe that it is time that government have contracts with inventors that will find inventions from Hawaii. I do believe it's time to have government involved in investment in new exports and technology. And it sounds like right now we have a great opportunity, instead of just passing out food that came from the mainland, we can actually use some of that money that we got from the federal government to change our economy and invest that money to grow food and to grow science and inventions. And so with that, I'm going to see how Michael fits into all of this story with all of you folks out there. So Michael, did you want Tusi to introduce you, or do you want to just go ahead and
You can
Explain
introduce.
how you're related to these guys.
You can introduce me.
Well, I bet, was it a couple of years ago we started working together on these new products and
Yes.
invention? I think it was, and was very touched by seeing all the leaders of Polynesia together to talk about how are they going to feed their people and how are they going to grow an economy from their own land so that they are not dependent on the outside world to survive and feed their families. And I have been against landfills since the day I got elected. And I have been wanting to close down the Waimanalo Gulch, which is not in Waimanalo, by the way. It's in the hills of Makakilo.
Right.
We know they called it Waimanalo Gulch so the people who live in Makakilo would think that it's not in their backyard, so they could pass it. But that's a whole nother story. And so Michael's invention interests me because it took every waste that you could think of and recycled it in some way. And part of the invention, of course, that he's going to talk about in a second, creates the most amazing fertilizer in the world from our own waste. And so with that, Michael, there's so many different facets of your invention, which we're hoping to get funding that's not connected to someone taking over the technology away from Hawaii, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
It's actually the plan model that we've come up with that Tusi and Kalani and I and Craig have all worked on is that we want to do decentralized systems. We want disruptive systems to be able to be spread out among the communities and let each community be self-reliant and profitable, not just sustainable. And what we figured out is there are from the technological end to make it real simple is I designed a giant pressure cooker that when you cook the different feedstocks, the different types of waste, then it goes over into a small biorefinery that separates it into fuel, into gas, diesel. You can make chemicals, fertilizers, synthetic or botanical plastics. You can make a lot of different products. You also make a lot of different types of carbons, solid carbons. You do everything from charcoal for cooking or heating to metallurgy. You do biochar that can be added to the soil to enhance plant growth, reduce the need for pesticides and for watering. You can make pure carbons that are used like in these computers, the phones, even the black for the tires on your car. These are all things that can be made and processed from what people consider to be waste. I don't consider things to be waste. I just look at them as resources that can be converted into other products that can be used in multitudes of industries. Right now, the biggest thing that everybody wants to do is get away from steel and use carbon fibers and use carbon for composites for like making their cars, their sailboats, their airplanes, all these different things. Well, we take green waste, we take solid waste, we take municipal waste, and we convert it into the feedstock in order to be able to produce these other products. Now, the thing is we shouldn't set it up so that, oh, we ship these resources to the mainland or somewhere else to be processed into things. We should develop the technologies here on a local basis, on a small scale basis, and develop them and produce the end products here, because you can do it for a limited cost. We work with PIFON, which is Pacific Island Farmers Network organization. About 50,000 islands throughout the South Pacific and the Pacific. 80,000 farmers. We're also working with the farmers and the people in the Caribbean and some over in the Middle East. We're trying to bring them all together because on a small localized scale, you can be almost 100% efficient. If you try to be a big centralized, expensive process, your efficiency drops down to 35 or 40%. So in other words, you got half of the stuff going to waste. Well, we eliminate the waste. We keep it down small. We also design the technologies that we're using, or like Hank was saying, we do atmospheric water harvesting. We pull water out of the atmosphere. So yeah, you can go up into the lava fields and have all the water you want.
And the carbon to feed the plants.
Yes, exactly. You know,
Cold water keeps the
No,
roots
no,
clean.
I don't want to rain on our small island thinking, but if we think about real economic development and how we impact the world, our oceans have become so polluted. I came to this party with Pa Lee, Doc Tusi, from the marine debris UNEP lens. We are a water culture. We could create the industry here where we take the technology out on floating cities at the gyres in the ocean manned by our young people who then collect the trash from the sea. What greater glory than to clean na wahine o ke kai, to fix the woman that is the sea, for Polynesians to go out and clean it, you know, for Hina, to get the planet back in motion again. We could literally make that and one of our industries. We generate our energy, our resources by cleaning the ocean with our micro technologies. Oh, sorry, there I go. I'm pontificating here dreaming about big solutions.
It's okay, my friend. There is a question from Robert from Michael. How does this, what is the difference between your technology and existing W2E tech? I don't know what that is. Maybe you can explain that.
okay, waste to energy technology is incineration.
Okay.
It means you burn.
Covanta right
you
now.
combust the things to make energy. We don't combust anything. We're combined technologies of flash carbonization, gasification, pyrolysis, pressurization, and catalysts, local catalysts that can be mixed with the feedstock so that we eliminate all the nasties. So we don't have sulfur dioxide, nitric oxides, we don't produce acids, we don't produce tars. I could go on a technical end, but let me just put it this way. We figured out how to produce good, clean products without generating negative products. We've reduced it down to a minimum of just a few percent. Now, what Kalani was saying was go out and get the plastics. Most all technologies are to just collect the plastics in the ocean and bring them back to land, and then try to process them or put them in a landfill. With our technology, you put it on the boat. You go out into the water, you clean it up out of the ocean, you process it. You turn it into fuel, you turn it into solid carbons, you turn it into gas, and you run the boats that are hauling the equipment with that fuel.
Exactly.
And you're going to develop more fuel than what's going to be utilized by the vessels you're on. So you now have an export product to sell to the fishermen that are out there. They don't have to come all the way back into land to refuel their ships. They can stay out at sea for longer periods of time. They need ice. Well, we can convert the heat into cold and supply them with ice out on the oceans. These are all technologies and things that have been developed for years and years. They're very mature technologies. All we do is we're like the little engine that could. We're a small machine that operates quite a bit and produces a lot with a small energy input.
So I don't mean to miss, you know, I need to stress this focus. Our interests, from my point with the disaster management lens, the recovery lens, which I think speaks to the moment, is the fractalization of the services and the capacity to stop replicating our big institutional delivery services, the idea that we provide from a single entity the services out. This, I think, Kym, is directly where political will and policy need is. This is exactly the place where we re-educate our policymakers about what our industry should look like. It's this simple. If you have 10 small power plants and 2 of them go out in the storm, the other 8 can get everybody running. If you have 1 big power plant and it goes out in the storm, right, end of story, right? So it's that simple, the mathematics. A second grader could see the logic in this model.
Puerto Rico is a classic example of that. They had a centralized system. When it went down, the whole territory went down.
They're going through that again with the earthquakes they just had.
Exactly.
So
I do want to follow up a little bit. And, you know, when I went to your first conference, which was a lot of fun, in Laie a couple of years ago, I thought this was really great idea. That sounds like a solution. And I asked Tusi, so if it's so great, why haven't we done it yet? And Tusi had the most pure-hearted answer for me. And he basically explained that a lot of you have an opportunity to sell your ideas to international or mainland companies, but they want to take over your idea, correct?
well,
And you guys are diehard people where you're looking for that partner, possibly the Hawaiian, the state of Hawaii or the student county of Honolulu, that will keep that technology here and benefit the people, correct?
For me, it's real simple. 80% of the state's revenue comes off the Cedar Lands Trust, with our Hawaiian Kingdom lands. That's how you can do it. You can feed our people with our own stuff instead of prostituting it out to.
I think that's a
large
yes.
businesses.
He wants to keep it here. I think that is such a yes. Michael, what were you saying?
I don't want to own it all. I'm not interested in owning it all. What I want to do is partner with other people and other groups. Let them set up their own systems, because there are so many different things that can be done. Like when Tusi was saying, the leaves and the fluorescence from the breadfruit, they need heat for processing. They need some chemicals from processing. We can convert part of what we're doing to do that, right? There's people that, you know, the landscapers, right? They have to haul their stuff off to dump it someplace for compost. Well, they can have their own unit and they can make their carbon, they can make their own fuel, they can eliminate a lot of their expenses.
Exactly.
By not having to go to a centralized place, right? And then these guys all develop their own businesses. They develop their own economies, right? And then the real economies of scale is in the multiplicity of all of this. It's by its replication throughout the islands. I did a rough calculation one day just thinking about this particular thought process, and I figured out that there's room enough for like 45 different small companies in our islands alone, right? That can process all different kinds of things, that can manufacture all different kinds of things. And then
they do it here. That could be the product that we export. That experience.
There's more, because we're like just a catalyst. And so you have these guys taking one form of what you would call waste and converting it into another product. But then you have the sales force, you have the transportation people, you have the distribution people, and everybody's got to eat. So you got the restaurants. So you have a broad spectrum network all tied in on local levels, which means we're taking care of all our own resources. We're using them within our own local economies, and we're always going to develop more than what we can consume. And that creates an entire export industry on a small scale. So we want to create the network to help these people market their products. So like setting a system up on all the different islands in the Pacific and the Caribbean will yield massive amounts of materials for other industries that can then produce what they do. Like Tesla wants to make his cars out of carbon composite material. Well, he can get that from the islands, right? So
I go back to Tusi. We have a lot of questions both from Zoom and from Facebook that are very similar, where people do want to get involved and learn how they could start a business, partnering with you folks. And Wade Fishman particularly says, I have a question. I am willing to change my small tourism business that I had for 10 years and transition to a local off-grid micro community on ag land. I know you guys are getting excited about this, right? Because I know you know the answer. And produce for the community and the state, but I can't do it financially with my tourism business being wiped out. Is there a will for funding programs like this for me to transition and help Hawaii be a self-sustaining and profitable community and state? And I can tell you, Wade, there's a commitment from me. I'll be talking about this a lot in the coming weeks and months to try to convince my fellow leaders. But this goes straight to the next question, Tusi. So it goes back to the Pacific Business Center program, multi-purpose business incubator project. That's like the longest term that you called your project, and some of its projects. And talk about your Ha'ula model that you folks won a national award for. This kind of will help everyone understand what Kalani as well as Mike were saying, whereas we can share this technology with different communities. Can you talk a little bit about that?
oh, you want Tusi or me to talk about that?
Whoever, Michael. Tusi.
Okay, the idea is that we understand that local people can't afford large amounts of money to buy systems and to get up into operation. So our plan is to bring them into the Innovation Center and to create partnerships and to help them get their basic funding in place, right? And then they can get their business in operation. And one real stipulation we're gonna have and we're gonna hold hard to is that when we help you, you have to help the next person, right? And we're gonna keep it going that way. This way, you don't have to come up with a giant chunk of money to get going into a business. You come up with a small amount of money, 10, 20%, and then you get operational.
Go, Pa.
No, it's just right. You just rolled it forward. One of the challenges, especially in the coastal areas, there's only one road in and out, especially along the windward coast and north shore. And so if there's a big disaster, these areas are going to be isolated. Those roads.
True on every island. True on every island.
So the design that Mike's looking at also is that it's mobile. It can you can haul it in by road, or you can drop it in by helicopter, or you can bring it in by sea. So when you can set it up, it also can generate energy so that it can light up an area. So you can do a lot of things that this the TCOM system can do. And also we notice when we observe Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands and New Orleans, huge mountains of trash and debris from the storms still there. Mike and I were in the Virgin Islands last August.
They should have brought our technology straight in.
But so a lot of this waste and debris can be converted right back into a viable resource to help rebuild the communities. So they don't have to wait. I know Honolulu will probably be priority for disaster preparedness. And a lot of the small rural areas are going to have to do the best they can with what little they have. But with a TCOM system, which Mike has designed so a 7th grader and a 65-year-old grandmother can operate. So we're not dependent on flying somebody in from Massachusetts. We're building local capacity from the ground up. So everything must be localized to the point where we need to minimize dependence.
And
Can you talk a little bit more about the Hau'ula Resilience Model Village that you
Ko'olauloa.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Ko'olauloa played a particular look in this. So from the disaster center, as we were training communities, we were looking at those that would be naturally isolated by a multiplicity of events. Hau'ula is exactly one of those communities. So we met with the community president, the leader. She's a retired University of Hawaii professor, and she moved out into the area, and Dottie's been critical to organizing the community. We trained the community. They organized themselves based on multiple trainings from the FEMA emergency management community, local civil defense, and the municipal trainers. And they organized their communities to have resources. So they did an inventory of their neighborhoods, of their population. They found out what medicines they're missing, what supplies they might need. They built a community holding station, including a refrigerated storage area. They brought everything in. It's there in the event that the highway gets cut off and they get isolated. We're talking about, with Michael's technology, individuated communities could safely install an energy and freshwater making facility in each one of our little ahupua'as going up around the coast. That means as we get isolated with these impacts, each area could care for itself and create localized employment for those 1 in 6 kids that don't actually want to go anywhere. They actually want to grow up and be like mom and dad and just live here in Hawaii and go to the beach and work and raise kids and have a quiet life. Wow, that we could create industry that would support that, a lifestyle that would support that. That's good policy.
And no such thing as cannot.
Yeah, no such thing as cannot. We can do this.
The thing
I
is,
just want to interrupt. If you just joined us, we're speaking with Dr. Tusi Avegalio, Reverend Kalani Souza, and Michael Lurvey about how to create a new economy for Hawaii that will feed our people and save our planet. We have Dottie from Hau'ula says hello. And so she was talking about within your model, is it your plan to then train people within different communities
Yes.
to use your technologies and to take that where they can make their own profits and feed their own people?
that's the whole thing. The real key to this, and it's called disaster preparedness. Most people think disaster preparedness is just waiting for the disaster to happen and just maybe have some backup supplies. What we're talking about is creating industries. You know, people have the breadfruit, they have bananas, they have coconuts, they have mangoes, they have all these things. Well, we also have a dehydrator and processing flour making unit that can go with our system, right? So that people can make their own food and prepare and store some of it, but they can sell it, right? They can generate an economy while they're waiting for the disaster to happen. Instead of waiting for the disaster to happen and do something, they can already be in preparation for it. They can put everything away ahead of time, and they can develop economies, right? And they can develop different training facilities, because it goes beyond just energy, water, and food. It means taking care of the kapuna. It means taking care of the children. It means teaching everybody what's needed ahead of time.
I think the important thing is this moment in human history is demonstrating to us that we are way more connected digitally than any of us want to admit. The fact is, with the Innovation Center, just like here in our community, we intended to create a virtual training component that continuously outreaches to all of the substrata, to the tiny little solid waste collection companies that we set up with the energy efficient models, and continue the learning. The fact is, life is a learning experience. It never stops. This new platform of digital interfacing and sharing means we can all continue the learning forever.
So what's so interesting and what you're really talking about is you are raising the educational level through
Yes.
action in real life models
For
that will
everyone.
allow everyone, whether you're rich or you're poor,
That's right.
or whatever area you come from in the island, that you will learn science, you will learn mathematics,
Yo.
you will learn agriculture. And so this is an enhancement if we partner with the Department of Education, where we could really be, South Korea places a high importance on education. They have some of the highest educational levels in the world. They, of course, during this crisis, didn't even close their economy down at all. They have 55 million people in their country, and they had 256 deaths without closing the economy because their science was able to match up with the crisis, and they were able to also have a circular economy that protects them from the rest of the tragedies of the world. And so I do want to talk about, okay, we talked about some of the concepts. So how does this work? So Dr. Tusi, so you're talking about collaborating with all of Polynesia so that we have the supply, right? And so then what do we do? And of course, we are going to grow our supply here of breadfruit, for example. And there's other things that you talked about too, but let's just look at the breadfruit model for now. So tell us where we go from here.
Well, an example is I gave a neighborhood board presentation regarding a plan that would engage all the neighborhood boards along the windward coast up to North Shore. That's all the way down from Waimanalo up to Haleiwa. Basically for the community to support the concept of laying a breadfruit agroforestry all the way along the mountain coast. And basically much of that is the restoration of ancient breadfruit agroforestries that have been removed. If they're willing to do that, that would enable us to also plan setting up with Kansas State University. They're the milling, flour making leaders, I think, in the world. And strategically place these mills along the coast, much like the factories during the sugarcane time, but these would be much more smaller. So I think while it takes time for the trees to grow, we look to be finalizing a memorandum of understanding with the Pacific Islands Farmers Organization Network. That's 80,000 farmers from Micronesia, Melanesia, and Polynesia. We deploy the TCOM systems down there. They'll be able to generate the raw supply, dry, ship it through an American territory. That would be an American Samoa, automatically enters the US market. We would like to see Hawaii become the center of manufacturing and processing for the world for breadfruit, because the highest concentration of this particular fruit is in the Pacific. And we have the experts that are here. Hawaii has those granaries that are
the abandoned flour mill.
Yeah, so there is a memory here, and we need to reactivate it, but then modernize it, utilizing the food engineers from Kansas State University, and then pull in our nutrition. There's much of the infrastructure needs, the expertise. We've already identified them. We've established a pool. So they're there. They just need support to make it happen. And if we have everything that we'd need, I'm confident we can launch this thing in 6 months. Because most of the infrastructure is there. The human infrastructure.
So, you know, you see us switching the camera. This to show that we're no strangers to technology, even though we're both old kupuna. Now, the reason for that is because Hawaii invested in technology. We even now have strong investment groups that invest in technology and move ahead. So let me put it to you this way. What we need to do is invest in diversified farming so that we have our own supplies here in the islands and we never again get caught with our pants down where we have to depend on missionaries to bring in food at 5 times the cost. I'm sorry, the national numbers are this. You pay 64% more for everything than the next highest city. 64%, not 10%, not 25%, 64 overall. So let's all join in, people. Let's figure out how we support localized farmers, young local people who want to live a natural agrarian life. They could come to Hamakua. We could create a land of 10,000 farms like Napa Valley, not all wine and not all beer hops. We could do all kinds of stuff. We would have the eggs, the cows, the milk, the cheese, the grapes, the squashes, and we could be ferrying all of this to Honolulu. Or how's this? We hire retired veterans. We put them at Waimea on retired helicopters, and every morning they're flying fresh supplies while we're getting training in for the young guns. So don't let them train flying around the islands doing nothing. Let them train flying food from Maui and the Big Island to Honolulu. Not just for the tourists, but for the people on the bases, for the people in the communities, for all of us.
I want to get perspective for everybody. So a lot of people who are saying, I've been talking about this for years, and there's all these groups that have been lobbying the legislature, and I've seen it and I experienced it. And they're always saying, oh, we just don't have the money and it's not affordable to farm in Hawaii anymore. I want to give everyone perspective of where your tax dollars has gone to. At its highest levels until recently, your tax dollars, the state gave your tax dollars over $108 million to the Hawaii Tourism Authority to promote tourism business. So my thought is, why can't we take some of that and invest in your ideas and keep the technology here, help that small farmer get started so that we can have a sustainable economy?
Hello.
So it shows you where we got in this place using your taxpayer dollars, and now we're in trouble. And so I think the hope of this program was to educate all of you about the possibilities and a shift that we all have to make to ensure that when we get these tax dollars, we're investing into to Michael's idea, to Dr. Tusi's idea, to the water technology that you folks talked about, to helping those small farmers. And I was going to go to Michael, but I think he just went to the bathroom. So I'm going to go back to you, Tusi.
Yeah, you know, I might add that I've got a couple examples of byproducts of the breadfruit. These were developed by Kenna she was a graduate student at the University of Canada. And she's the first to make a breadfruit-based cosmetic using squalene. And the raves are out there. What she needs is supply more leaves. So this is a great opportunity for someone locally to partner with her. And this is cosmetic creams, etc., lip balms. I don't know what women do with it, but usually if you can't eat it, men or drink it, men aren't interested. But this is really good stuff. And in the Virgin Islands, Mike, if you want to show.
Oh, you got the vodka.
Vodka from the St. Croix Virgin Islands, one of our collaborators, Chef Todd.
Hey, you're supposed to save one for me, Tusi. I never got it.
We got it coming. It is so popular. He had to open up a second distillery in Puerto Rico. He's now in Louisiana. He has an outstanding demand for 70,000.
Kalani's got his vodka.
And again, the issue is supply. So these are examples of what's already happening. And I would really like to see the Pacific Hawaii take the lead on this, because we have the infrastructure, we have the cultural, spiritual, and intellectual capital to make it happen.
Hank says we have the manpower. I want to remind us all, we also have the history of other agencies being totally rooted here and fully supported by this beast that they created. There are a lot of descendants of the missionaries and the whalers all over the planet living in Paris who are counting on that check every year that comes from the trust that they bleed dry from Hawaii. You know me, I love you guys, but I ain't gonna sugarcoat nothing, right? It's like, let's get real for our grandchildren, right? Let's come forward in this moment and be together as community the way our grandparents intended. Let's not let our grandchildren down.
So a couple of things. There's a lot of questions. I'm trying to consolidate some of them that say the same thing, but I want to go back. Michael, what's the name of that vodka again?
Mutiny.
You see
Is
it?
that the one that you shared with me at your opening of
Yes.
the Veterans Center?
Yes.
Okay, I for everyone, I do not drink vodka. It's strong for me. But this breadfruit vodka was the first vodka that I could actually drink straight. And I was glad I had another meeting and left your party because I would have gotten in trouble.
That-
But so Dr. Tusi, so how many back orders, or is he short right now?
70,000 bottles. I was just talking with Chef.
70,000.
70,000 pounds.
He needs more. He's got to come up with 70,000 more bottles. So the demand is so great. He's also developed a sanitizer using breadfruit alcohol. So he's quite the entrepreneur, and we're trying to get him. He's leading the farmer commercial initiative in the Caribbean and connect them up here with Pacific. Perhaps even move one of his distilleries out here to closer to the supply. But a lot of exciting things, and they're just getting off the ground. On the matter of funding, if we had waited for grants, et cetera, that takes years to process, we wouldn't be here. We just took a flying leap. We looked for sponsors. We looked for anybody who shared our ideas. We just wanted to make it work. If you're going to wait around conventionally for funding, well, you probably still be waiting. It takes
The
a year.
truth is, Doc and I are both in trouble with our wives. Because the fact is, we laid it out on the line. We put private financing out there. We paid our own way. A lot of people did. Mike, Craig, because people are committed to doing business in a different way. You know, and the fact is, we got some big players aligned to resist any change in the funding. You know, 108 million annually. I used to be working with the Audiovisual Center down at the Hawaii Convention Center for years. So I sat in the room of all those meetings. Big mistake, JD, right? It's like, big mistake, Rex, right? It's like, I'm sitting there listening to everything. That $108 million could go a long way to supporting local industry, local farming, local manufacturing. And here comes Kalani's big secret for the day. Everybody in the world knows where Hawaii is. Everybody wants to come here. You don't have to spend $1. They're all coming here anyway.
Can you imagine everybody being with these guys and drinking this vodka all night? The conversation can go forever. I do have a couple. There's a couple more questions from Facebook. I don't know if it's related, but Andy Doka, nice to see you, Andy. Said, here's an idea. Let's convert some of the hotels that, and we all know some of the hotels are going to go under, and let's convert them to affordable housing and hydroponic farming, manufacturing, anything that we can to create local products.
I can help with vertical designing. We can come in with our team and from our nonprofit, which is a state 501c3, and we can help design communication methodologies, social ways of being for sharing those small spaces, ways to share the food. And oh my, is this a dream come true? Low income local families living on the beach in the prime real estate. Oh, wow.
Well, in reality, you know what we need to do too is we need to do vertical farming.
Yes.
Those
Yes.
keep going out and spreading the farming out on acreage.
But the truth
we
is,
need to do
no
it.
more farming. We need to do natural agroforestry the way our ancestors did it. If you read the British logs, they're covered with pages of, oh my God, we can't believe the fertility and the food in this place. That's the Brits. They purposely returned to Hawaii to create plantations.
Oh yeah.
Plantations serve the 1%. Agroforestry can serve us all.
There was a comment from Fred Dishman on Facebook that talked about the 1,000 acres in central Oahu under Agribusiness Development Corporation.
Yo.
And they said that land was paid for with taxpayer dollars. So why
Yes.
our taxpayer dollars help the smaller farmer and what you guys are doing? Do you agree?
I have to confess, I have been part of legislation that we have put into place at the Capitol, and in the 11th hour, betrayed by senators on our own team, the money gets written in to go to these agronomic institutions. Let's face it, we're all patting ourselves in the back and paying ourselves dollars. And some of us are getting very rich on this. It's time for all of us to wake up, really do our own interpersonal, transpersonal inspection about what it is we believe we should be doing in these islands together. And then we should move forward together.
Right. Well, I've let you folks go a little longer than an hour because the conversation is so interesting. And if you can just close. So Tusi, you said in the next 6 months, we can start this. So what kind of financial resources and investment would you need to get the first 6 months going?
Well, at the multi-purpose business incubator, we've got 2 major projects that need launching. And it probably cost combined probably $1 million. But the technologies are there. It's a matter of getting them manufactured, to specs, shipped, etc., assembled. But once they're ready to go, I think they'll be able to generate returns on investment like nobody's business. So we also need to review what are the policies to enable people to utilize government lands.
Ew.
So that the people can access. You also need a mechanism to help manage and guide the process. So that's what we do at the university. So we're not here to make a profit. We're here to serve. This is your university. And we utilize whatever resources are in the
Say that
system.
very loudly to them.
Exactly. And that's part of why we love working with Pauli and the business college, because they know how to take a back seat. Do you see how even Freudianly said, look, we want to hide in the background. We don't want to be for it. We want to support communities to have the power for it. And that's the right model. That's why I'm committed to working
That's
with
the
those
difference.
hands.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah,
Michael, any closing remarks from you?
One last thing is,
Yeah.
the bottom line for us is really simple. It's aloha. It's as simple and as compelling and as profound as that.
Thank you so much. Michael, any
Yeah,
last
well,
comments of what you need?
Well, there's a gold mine of knowledge out there in the university systems, right? I mean, Hawaii developed a wireless system, right? You have all these people making equipment that'll go down 30,000 feet under the ocean, that'll look out 13 billion years into time, right? All these students, they have all these different technologies. They know how to they have the ideas and the concepts for it. We have a way to help them make it manifest into reality, into small scale shops, right? Look at this, you know, everybody's using 3D printers now. Everybody needed face masks, face shields and stuff like that. You had college kids, you had high school kids all of a sudden whipping this stuff out, right? Well, that's what we need, is to bring together all these people on all these small scale things to start making a large effect on what's going on in the community, both locally and globally. And, you know,
Government can
have
do it.
room down in the top.
Any other last comments?
Love that smile, wishing for real change in Honolulu. We're suggesting the people in Honolulu need to look to support the neighbor islands, move the resources of funding out there, and eventually move your kids out there too. You know, create a life out that is not the hustle and bustle of downtown, but recapture. Have you heard it in the last couple of weeks? The quiet murmuring of our families at home. It's beautiful, man. I'm loving it.
That's
I'm
right.
loving the fact there's no traffic on the highways anymore.
I'm loving it.
And if I might add, these are all micro island solutions for global challenges.
Aye.
Being
Well said.
glocalization, thinking globally, acting locally.
So our follow-up from this, everyone, is we need to get this on paper so that the public can see what you need to succeed. And in closing remarks, I want to wish everyone out there who is suffering some hope. I hope we provided you with some hope today that there is a good future ahead of us. But it's going to take us to come together and have the will to say that we have had enough. That we have had enough of our taxpayer dollars funding an economy that places us at such a high risk that we can't even feed our families.
Yes.
So what we learned from today is we can be more self-sufficient and feed our people. We can have food gardens and agroforestry plots growing and thriving all over Hawaii. We can realign, expand, and install local economic development models that enable the state to become more self-reliant by shifting from a globalization to localization. We
Yes.
can establish new agriculturally based industries linked to breadfruit products and byproducts for local export purposes. We can clean up our beaches and our waste with regenerative technology that is mobile and easily operated by a 7th grader to a 60-year-old grandmother. We can follow the Hau'ula Windward Coast community resilience and self-sufficient disaster preparedness model to adapt throughout Hawaii and the Pacific. And we can make it happen in operating with 6 months. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. I hope you share this video to all of your friends today. Think about it. Your taxpayer dollars of almost over $108 million a year paid for where we are today. It's time for you to call your elected leaders and say that it's time that we have a shift in where we spend our taxpayer dollars. We want you to pay our taxpayer dollars or spend our taxpayer dollars on making us strong, resilient, self-reliant, and most importantly, affordable. Thank you, my friends. I will have some vodka with you soon, breadfruit vodka. But Kalani and Uncle, you got to come to Oahu. Hopefully,
Thank
when
you very
there's
much
no-
for allowing me to participate.
Yeah. Thank you
Pleasure.
so much. Love you guys.
Love you.
Bye-bye.
Aloha mai.
Aloha.
Aloha mai.